As a soldier, he fought in wars across galaxies, traveling to distant planets for peacekeeping missions. But one day, his mission on an unknown alien planet changed everything. The last time he had spoken to his wife, Catherine, was over a crackling communication line. He promised her he would return, but that promise was never kept. Or at least that's what Catherine thought. For years, David was presumed dead. His name was engraved on the memorial wall, listed among the fallen soldiers, and life moved on without him. Catherine did her best to move forward, raising their son Marcus alone. She never spoke about David to Marcus, but she often found herself remembering him in quiet moments. Her heart was torn, but she had to focus on the future. Marcus grew up with stories from his mother, never really knowing who his father had been. Marcus knew the basics. His dad was a brave soldier who had died fighting for the greater good, but the truth was far more complicated. Catherine had never been able to talk about David's disappearance. It hurt too much, and the emptiness of his absence lingered in every corner of their home. She carried on, but it was as if David had never truly left, his shadow always following her steps. David had disappeared from the face of the earth, and no one knew why. His family had been left with the whole of an unsolved mystery. But what no one knew was that David had never died. In fact, he had been more alive than ever before. His time on the alien planet had led to incredible discoveries, things far beyond human comprehension. David had come into contact with an ancient alien race, beings of such power that their existence bent the very fabric of reality. During his time there, David had learned abilities no human should have, powers that allowed him to manipulate time itself. But it was not without a price. The alien race had shown him a different way of thinking, of understanding the universe. He was no longer the soldier who had left Earth. David had become something more, something far more powerful. But at the same time, he had been forever changed. As the years passed, he never gave up hope of returning home. He learned how to manipulate time, how to bend it, how to create portals that could take him back to Earth. But every time he tried, something blocked his path. There was a force stronger than any alien power that kept him away from his family. He spent years trying to unlock the secrets of time, but each attempt led to failure. David's heart ached with the knowledge that his family had no idea he was still alive. He had missed so much. Marcus growing up without him, Catherine growing older without him. But one day something changed. After years of trial and error, David finally succeeded. He found a way to break the barrier that had kept him from Earth, and he could finally return. He stood on the edge of the alien planet, staring at the swirling portal he had created, his heart racing with excitement. He knew that what he was about to do would shock everyone he once knew, especially his son. David had no idea how Marcus would react. Would he even recognize him? Would Marcus hate him for abandoning him all those years ago? David stepped into the portal, and in the blink of an eye, he was home. When David arrived back on Earth, he didn't expect a warm welcome. No, he wasn't sure what he would find. The world had changed. Technology had advanced, and the people he once knew were no longer the same. But there was one thing that hadn't changed: his family. David's home still stood as it had before, though it was now older and quieter. He stood in front of it, unsure of what to do next. As he walked to the door, David's heart raced. This was the moment he had been waiting for. He was about to see his son again. It had been so long. Would Marcus even recognize him? How could he explain all the years of silence? David knocked on the door, his heart pounding in his chest. The sound of footsteps approached from inside. The door creaked open, and there stood Marcus, grown, taller, and with a look of confusion on his face. David stared at his son for a long moment, unsure of how to speak. His son's face was a mixture of disbelief and shock. Marcus didn't say a word at first, just stared at his father as if trying to make sense of the impossible sight before him. "Dad?" Marcus finally asked, his voice shaky. "Is it really you?" David nodded, his heart heavy with emotion. He didn't know how to explain it, but all he could say was, It's me, Marcus. I've come back. Marcus took a step back, his eyes narrowing. How? How is this even possible? You died. Everyone said you died. David swallowed hard, his mind racing. He wanted to explain everything, but the truth was so much more complicated than words could express. He could see the pain in his son's eyes, the years of loss, and the anger that had built up over the absence of a father. I know it's hard to believe, David said, his voice gentle. But I didn't die. I was taken. There's so much I need to tell you. Marcus stood frozen, trying to process what his father was saying. His whole life had been built around the idea that his father was gone. The man in front of him couldn't possibly be the same man he remembered from his childhood, the father he had lost so long ago. Marcus shook his head, unable to find the right words. David felt a sharp pang in his chest. He had imagined this moment for years, but now that it was here, it didn't feel as he had hoped. He had missed so much, and his return was nothing like the reunion he had dreamed of. He could only hope that with time, he would be able to make his son understand. Marcus took another step back, his eyes never leaving his father. I don't know what to think, he whispered. This is too much. David could only nod. He didn't know how to make his son believe him, how to explain the years of hardship and the alien world he had been a part of. But he was determined to make things right, no matter how long it took. David stood at the doorstep, his heart racing, unsure of what to say next. His son, Marcus, stood frozen in front of him, eyes wide with disbelief. It had been years, decades, even since David last saw him. The boy who had once been small and full of wonder had now grown into a young man, tall and strong, but there was an emptiness in his gaze that broke David's heart. How could he explain everything? How could he make Marcus understand the truth about what had happened? Marcus blinked, taking a step back, as though trying to process the impossible sight of his father standing there. His hand hovered over the door, unsure whether to close it or invite David in. He didn't know whether to hug him, shout at him, or just walk away. "Dad, is it really you?" Marcus asked, his voice shaking. "I thought you were gone. Everyone said you were dead." David nodded slowly, feeling the weight of the years between them. "I know it's hard to believe," he said softly. "But I'm here. I'm not the man I was before, but I'm still your father." For a long moment, Marcus just stood there staring at him. His lips trembled, and David could see the conflict in his eyes. He didn't know whether to embrace him or turn away, torn between the anger of abandonment and the hope that his father had truly come back. David understood. The years without him had scarred Marcus, and there was no way to undo that pain. Finally, Marcus spoke again, though his words were barely a whisper. How? How are you alive? You disappeared. Everyone thought you were lost forever." David took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. This was the moment he had been dreading and hoping for. The moment where everything would either fall apart or slowly begin to rebuild. "It's complicated, son," David began, his voice low and serious. "I was on a mission, a peacekeeping mission far from Earth. But something went wrong, and I was taken by an alien race. They have power beyond anything we can understand. I learned things there, things that changed me. I wasn't just lost. I don't know how to explain it. I was taken, but I never stopped thinking about you, about your mother." Marcus's eyes narrowed, disbelief still written all over his face. "Alien race?" He shook his head. "Are you telling me you were abducted? That's insane, Dad. I don't know what to think anymore." David stepped forward, his heart heavy with the weight of the truth. "It's true, Marcus. I was given abilities that no human should have. I couldn't come back. There was something stopping me. I tried for years, but it wasn't until recently that I figured out how to return." Marcus took another step back, his mind racing. He wanted to believe his father, but it was too much. How could he? His whole life had been shaped by the idea that his father was gone. Gone forever. And now, after all these years, here was this man, this stranger claiming to be David. "I don't know what to believe anymore," Marcus muttered. "You're here, but you're not the person I remember. I don't even know who you are anymore." David's heart ached as he saw the pain in his son's eyes. He couldn't blame him. He had missed out on so much of Marcus's life, and now he was faced with a stranger in his own home. He wanted so badly to reach out, to tell Marcus everything, but he knew it wouldn't be that easy. "I'm still your father," David said, his voice quiet but firm. "I know I'm not the man you remember, but I'm here now. And I want to make things right, son. I know it's going to take time, but we can start again. I want to be part of your life no matter how much time we've lost." Marcus stared at him for a long time, his expression torn between anger and confusion. You don't get it, Dad," he said, his voice growing louder now. "You disappeared. You were supposed to come back. Mom, she never talked about you. She never told me what really happened. I grew up thinking you were gone. And now you just show up like nothing's happened?" David felt his throat tighten, but he held his ground. "I know I can't undo the past. I can't change what happened, but I can be here now. I can be the father you deserve, Marcus. I can't promise I'll make everything right, but I can try." Marcus turned away, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "I don't know what to say. This is all too much." David hesitated for a moment, then stepped closer. "I'm not asking for forgiveness right now," he said gently. "I just want you to know that I'm here. I'm back. And I won't leave again." Marcus let out a bitter laugh. "You left us for years and now you're back expecting everything to be fine? You think I'm just going to forgive you for that?" David's heart clenched. "I don't expect you to forgive me, Marcus. I don't expect anything from you right now. I just want to be part of your life again. I've missed so much and I'm sorry for that. But I want to be here, however you'll let me." The silence between them was thick, both men grappling with emotions they hadn't been prepared for. Finally, Marcus spoke again, his voice quieter this time. "I don't know how we're supposed to fix this, Dad. I don't know if I can even trust you anymore." David nodded, understanding more than Marcus could know. "I'm not asking you to trust me right now. All I'm asking is for a chance to show you that I'm here for you, and I won't leave again." Marcus didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked away, his expression hard to read. David could see the conflict in his son's eyes, the deep hurt, the anger, but also a flicker of hope, buried beneath years of pain. David gave him space, waiting patiently, knowing that the road ahead would be difficult. He didn't expect things to be fixed in a day. But he was back now. And that, at least, was a start. David's return to Earth had shaken Marcus to his core, and even after a few days, the tension between them hadn't eased. The two men still walked around each other like strangers, awkward and unsure. David had hoped that time would heal the wounds of the past, but things weren't as simple as he had imagined. Marcus didn't know how to look at his father, or if he even wanted to. David tried to make amends in small ways. He helped around the house, offering to repair things that had long been broken. He cooked meals, though they weren't always great. And he tried to talk with Marcus, but every conversation felt forced. Marcus would nod, but his eyes were distant, his mind constantly searching for answers to questions David couldn't even begin to explain. One evening, after dinner, David and Marcus sat on the porch, the sun setting behind them. The quiet stretched out, almost unbearable. Finally, Marcus spoke. "Why did you never come back?" Marcus asked, his voice tight with frustration. "If you had the power to return, why didn't you? Why didn't you fight harder to get home? You could have come back sooner, but you didn't. I've spent my whole life without you, and now you're telling me that you just waited? You waited years to come back?" David's heart sank. He had known this moment was coming, but it still hit harder than he expected. The truth, his truth, was something Marcus needed to hear. It was time to explain. "I didn't want to leave you, Marcus. I never chose to stay away. The truth is I didn't know how to come back," David said quietly. He paused, searching for the right words. The alien race I encountered, they have powers beyond anything we could imagine. They could control time, reality itself. I wasn't just taken to another planet. I was changed. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he listened. Changed? What do you mean? David looked at his son, the weight of his years of silence pressing down on him. He had never told anyone what had happened to him on that alien world, but he knew Marcus had a right to know. After I was taken, I met a woman, an alien woman. Her name was Lyra, David began, his voice growing distant as he thought back to those days. She wasn't like anyone I've ever known. She showed me things that human beings aren't meant to understand. She taught me how to see the universe differently, how to manipulate time, how to bend the laws of nature. Marcus frowned, his confusion deepening. So you're telling me that you, what? Became some kind of superhuman? You can bend time now? David nodded slowly. Yes, but it's not as simple as it sounds. I was given power, but at a great cost. The more I learned, the more I understood that there were things beyond even their control. There were forces, things out of our reach. I couldn't just walk back to Earth, Marcus. I had to learn how to navigate these new powers. And even then, there was always something stopping me from coming back. Marcus shook his head. I don't get it. Why didn't you tell Mom? Why didn't you reach out somehow? You could have sent a message. You could have let us know that you were still alive. David lowered his head, feeling a deep shame. I wanted to, but I couldn't. There were things I didn't understand. When I first came into contact with Lyra and the others, I was lost. Their world was so different from ours. I didn't know how to communicate with anyone back home. I didn't know how to send a message. Every time I tried, it felt like the universe itself was blocking me. Marcus stood up abruptly, pacing back and forth on the porch. I don't understand. So you were out there, learning all this crazy stuff, but you couldn't even reach out to say you were okay? You couldn't even send a message to let us know? David stood as well, his mind racing. It wasn't like that. It wasn't about not caring. I couldn't reach out, Marcus. The power I was given. It's hard to explain. The alien race I was with, they saw the universe in a way we can't even begin to understand. They showed me things, but they also kept things from me. I was learning, but I was also being held back. Marcus stopped pacing and turned to face his father. So what? You're telling me that all this time you just accepted it? That you never once thought about coming home? Never once thought about Mom or me? David's chest tightened. I did think about you, Marcus. Every day. You and your mother were always on my mind. But I couldn't come back until I figured it out. I had to learn how to control these powers, how to navigate the path back. I didn't just disappear. I was trying to understand something much bigger than myself. Marcus's face softened, his anger slowly giving way to confusion. So, it wasn't your fault? You didn't just abandon us? David's voice was heavy with emotion. No, it was never my choice. But I should have tried harder. I should have found a way to come back sooner. I'm sorry, Marcus. For a long moment, the two of them stood in silence, the air thick with the weight of David's confession. Finally, Marcus sighed and sat back down. He didn't know what to say. He was still processing everything, trying to make sense of the new reality his father had dropped on him. I don't know what to do with all this, Marcus said quietly, his voice shaky. I don't know if I can just accept it. David nodded, sitting beside him. I understand. I'm not asking you to accept it all right away. I just needed you to know the truth. I'm back now, and I want to be a part of your life again. But I know it's going to take time. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just want a chance to make things right. Marcus didn't answer at first, but David could see the conflict in his son's eyes. It wasn't forgiveness that Marcus needed, David realized. It was time. Time to understand the man who had returned to him. Time to understand the father who had been lost for so long. I'll need time, Marcus said finally, his voice quieter now. But I'll try. David smiled, feeling a flicker of hope. It wasn't much, but it was something. And after all these years, it was enough. The days after David's confession were filled with uneasy silence. While David hoped for reconciliation, Marcus was still struggling to understand what had happened, what David had been through. There were moments of quiet conversations, small gestures that showed David's attempt to make things right, but Marcus wasn't ready to let go of the years of hurt. The weight of the past was heavy on both of them. David tried to give Marcus space, respecting the emotional turmoil his son was going through. He knew that trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt in a day. So, he did what he could. He helped around the house, fixed things that had been broken for years, and slowly started becoming a presence in Marcus's life. But it wasn't easy. One afternoon, Marcus asked David if he wanted to go out for a walk. David was surprised but grateful for the invitation. It was the first sign that Marcus was willing to engage, even if just a little. They walked through the park near their home, the quiet air around them filled with the sound of birds and the rustle of leaves. David felt the weight of the past months lift just a little, hopeful that Marcus was starting to soften. "I don't get it, Dad," Marcus said as they walked, keeping a few steps ahead. His voice wasn't as angry as before, but the confusion was still there. "How could you just disappear? I mean, I get it. Things happened, but you had to know how much Mom and I needed you. It wasn't just about you. It was about us." David stopped walking for a moment, looking up at the sky. He had been dreading this conversation, but now that it was happening, he felt a sense of relief. He had been waiting for Marcus to truly ask the hard questions. Now he had to answer them honestly, no matter how difficult. "I didn't just disappear, Marcus," David said, his voice low. "The alien race I was with, they showed me things I never knew existed. It wasn't just about the power or the knowledge. It was about survival. I was part of something much bigger than anything I had ever imagined. But none of that matters, not now. I should have come back sooner, but I was trying to understand it all. I was trying to find a way home." Marcus turned around, his face softening. "I know it must have been hard, but why didn't you fight harder to get back to us? You could have sent a message or something. You could have told us you were alive." David sighed deeply. "I wish I could have, but I couldn't. Every time I tried to reach Earth, I couldn't make contact. There were forces out there I didn't understand, things that were holding me back. It wasn't just about being gone. It was about trying to find a way back and not knowing how. I spent years trying to figure it out." Marcus looked away, trying to process everything. "I just don't understand, Dad. Why didn't you try harder?" David took a deep breath. "I thought I was doing the right thing, Marcus, but now I see how much I hurt you, and I hate that. I would give anything to go back and change it, but I can't. I can only be here now, and I want to make it right. But I need you to understand that I didn't want to leave you. I never chose this." For a moment, there was silence between them. The weight of the conversation hung in the air. Finally, Marcus spoke again, his voice softer this time. "I know it wasn't easy, Dad. I do. But Mom, she was always so strong. She never talked about you. It was like you were a ghost, and I had to grow up without you, without a father, and I hated that. But now you're back, and it's like everything's different." David nodded, his heart heavy with regret. "I know, Marcus. I know it's not easy. I'm sorry. I can't take back the years, but I'm here now, and I want to be part of your life again, no matter what that means." Marcus looked at him, his expression thoughtful. "I don't know how to do this, Dad. I don't know how to let you back into my life after all this time. I don't even know who you are anymore." David felt the sting of those words, but he didn't shy away. He knew it would take time to rebuild what had been lost. "I'm not the same man I was, Marcus," David said softly. "I can't be. I've changed and I know that. But I'm still your father. And I'll do whatever it takes to show you that I'm here for you now. I won't leave again." For a moment they stood in silence, the sounds of the park around them fading into the background. David's words hung in the air between them, an invitation to begin again, a chance to start over. Marcus looked down at the ground, his mind racing with everything he had just learned. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet, Dad," Marcus said, his voice low. "But I'll try to understand. I don't know if we can just pick up where we left off, but maybe we can start with a clean slate." David's heart lifted. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something, a chance. And that was all he needed. "That's all I'm asking for, Marcus," David said, his voice filled with quiet gratitude. "A chance to prove that I'm here for you, that I won't leave you again." As they continued walking through the park, David felt a small glimmer of hope in his chest. It wasn't the reunion he had dreamed of, but it was the beginning of something new. A chance to rebuild a relationship that had been lost, one step at a time. For the first time since he returned to Earth, David allowed himself to believe that, maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. It wouldn't be easy, but it was a start. And for David, that was enough. The days after their walk in the park were filled with small steps. Marcus and David still had a long road ahead of them, but things were slowly starting to change. It wasn't easy, and it certainly wasn't quick, but they were learning to live in the same space again. Marcus, for the first time in years, was beginning to trust that his father wasn't going to disappear again. It wasn't a perfect understanding, but it was a start. And for both of them, that was enough for now. David spent more time with Marcus, trying to rebuild the connection they had lost. They worked together on small projects around the house, fixing things that had been neglected for years. David shared stories from his time away, and slowly, Marcus began to understand just how much his father had changed. The man sitting in front of him wasn't the same person who had left all those years ago, but that didn't mean he wasn't still his father. It was a hard pill to swallow, but it was one that Marcus was slowly learning to accept. One afternoon, as they worked on fixing an old car in the driveway, Marcus turned to David, wiping his hands on his pants. He had been quiet for a while, clearly deep in thought. "Dad," he said, his voice a little unsure, "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about your time with the aliens, and everything you learned. I don't fully understand it, but I get that it was important to you. I guess I just never realized how much you had to give up to come back." David looked at him, surprised by the depth of Marcus's words. It had been a long time since they'd really talked about his experiences, and hearing Marcus acknowledge that part of his life meant more than David could put into words. "It was hard," David admitted, his voice quiet. "I had to leave, behind everything I knew. I was part of something bigger, and when you're in that world, it's easy to forget what matters most. But I never forgot you, Marcus. Not for a second." Marcus nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "I know, it's hard to forgive someone for being gone for so long, for missing out on everything." David sighed, feeling the weight of those words. He knew that forgiveness wasn't something that could be rushed. It was something that Marcus had to come to on his own. But hearing him speak so honestly made David feel like they were moving in the right direction. "Forgiveness is a process," David said gently. "And I know I have a lot to make up for. I won't pretend I can fix everything. But I'm here, now, and I'll be here for as long as you'll have me." Marcus smiled faintly, looking down at the car they were working on. "I don't know if I'm ready to fully forgive you yet, but I'm trying. I'm willing to give it a shot. I think that's all we can do right now." David's heart lifted slightly. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. It was progress. The next few weeks passed in much the same way. They spent time together, little by little, growing more comfortable around each other. Marcus still had his moments of doubt, still questioned whether his father could really change. But each day was a small step toward healing. David was patient, never pushing too hard but always present, always trying to show Marcus that he was there for him in a way that he never had been before. One evening, David cooked dinner, trying his best to make something